Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Crime and violence has a tight grip on Baltimore, and tonight residents say they need change now.
What we're going through in Baltimore right now is torture.
You can't even leave out your door in the morning time and guarantee that you're going to make it back home to your family.
Our children is dying.
Sir, what you doing about it?
Y'all sitting in the office doing
about it?
I'm leaving. I'm not willing to sacrifice the life of one of my children for Baltimore City.
For 8 straight years, more than 300 people have been murdered in Baltimore, and 5 days into the new year, 14 people have already been shot and touched by gun violence. 11 of them have survived, but 3, all young people, have been killed. All young people have been killed. The latest death, a 16-year-old boy in southwest Baltimore. He was shot alongside 4 other students yesterday afternoon at the Edmondson Village Shopping Center, just steps away from their school. Today, we learned his name is Deontay Dorsey. 2 suspects got away.
Now, the new year has brought changes and promise to Baltimore as well. Ivan Bates is now the city's top prosecutor, and he's vowing to turn the page in the fight against crime.
Nobody is exempt from this. If you live in Baltimore City, it could be your child next. That's how real this thing is. So we're asking you to bring your young men and your young women to us. Playtime is over.
And yeah, well, my father got locked up, but where was his father?
Father's in prison. Some of the fathers are in the street leading this madness.
Right.
And that children gotta see them. I gotta have kids with me and go around the corner so they won't see their father on the block slinging.
Don't be part of the problem by being silent. Being silent and on the sideline right now is part of the problem.
all us gotta hold each other accountable.
That's right.
All these mothers know that kids carry guns. All the grandfathers, mothers, uncles, cousins know they carry guns. I hold all y'all accountable.
Black lives only matter when somebody else is killing us.
That's right.
So if you're waiting on the media to find out Black Lives Matter or black shooting, you don't give a fuck no way. They black people won't go get the facts. So if you're waiting on the media to find out Black Lives Matter or black shooting, you don't give a fuck no way.
One shooting, another, and another. The sound of gunfire followed by first responders fills the air in Baltimore City neighborhoods. Another day and another family, forever shaped by the choices made of those pulling the triggers. Pulling the triggers. Those pulling the triggers.
They black people won't go get the facts. They black people won't go get the facts.
We offered a plan for retention to Mayor Scott and his administration, but have been met with silence. Instead, the priority is to charge our cops with every little infraction or mistake.
Can you count, suckers?
Union officials say the department has lost 170 more officers than have been hired. The FOP contends there aren't enough officers to do basic policing, much less focus on violent crime. Reporting from the Bishop Rob.
Can you count, suckers?
We have mostly black men being killed in the streets of Baltimore, and there are no protests, there's no riots, nobody's upset, okay? As mainly young black men are losing their lives. Now, if a young black man was to lose his life to a white police officer, there would be an uproar in the streets. "19 years old, Jamira Burnell. Nobody is going to know his or her name, okay? Nobody will know their name. Because nobody cares, because most likely they were probably killed by a black person, statistically speaking here. Clearly, the city is also being mismanaged by Democrat leadership.
Can you count, suckers?
Take a look.
So far this year, Baltimore has seen 299 homicides. Last year at this time, the number was 303.
Can you count, suckers?
Non-fatal shootings remain high at 641. Last year at this time, there were 636.
Can you count, suckers?
Buried in those statistics is the grim number of 90. That's how many people 25 years old or younger have been murdered so far this year in Baltimore.
Baltimore, a city that, I mean, let's be real, they're being ran by black folks, okay? This is a black city, okay? It's been ran by black people. And, you know, this is the result. Why in the world do these people in Baltimore continuously vote Democrat? Why do you continuously vote for this and you know you're going to get the same thing over and over and over and over and over again?
They black people won't go get the facts.
Why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crops. We need them to pick the crop. We need them to pick the crops down here.
They black people won't go get the facts.
Brandon Scott was clear about his plans.
Can you count, suckers?
I will aim to reduce homicides by 15% each year in my term, getting us below 300 homicides in my first year.
That didn't happen his first year in office or the second.
As you can see there, those statistics are absolutely a disaster. Baltimore is set to have its 8th year in a row with 300 or more homicides in the city. And a lot of this is happening due to police staffing shortages. They literally don't have enough police officers to fight crime on the streets. And guess what the Democrats are doing? Guess what the Democrats, the lefties that are running this city, is doing? They are literally celebrating as if this is progress. No, I'm not kidding. This is what they're doing.
The latest data from the Baltimore Police Department showing BPD lost more officers than it hired each month from January through July. In total, the department hiring 56 officers, but losing 156.
Can you count, suckers?
The FOP writing, the more immediate issue that needs to be resolved is the retention of officers who are already here and trained.
Despite the physical reminders of the violence almost daily, Mayor Brandon Scott and his administration has been saying the violence is improving.
Today, Baltimore is one homicide under last year.
Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Anthony Barksdale telling me at the end of September.
I base how I view things on the data, and that data says that we're going in the right direction.
Despite one fewer person killed in Baltimore than at the same time in 2021.
Of course, there's room for progress, so I'm not arguing with you on that point, but -1 is a start.
So if you're waiting on the media to find out Black Lives Matter or black shootings, you don't give a fuck no way. They black people won't go get the facts. So if you're waiting on the media to find out Black Lives Matter or black shootings, you don't give a fuck no way.
Fast forward to early December.
Homicides and shootings, while we are over 300, are down from last year as well.
Mayor Scott touting the city's work when there were 3 fewer homicides than the same time last year. 3 fewer homicides than the same time last year. 3 fewer homicides than the same time last year. Just a few days later,
can you count, suckers?
The city back up to seeing more people killed in 2022 than the previous year.
Leaders need to be a little bit more careful celebrating success when we really haven't had long-term success.
Political analyst John Dede says the mayor and other leaders need more data and proof their efforts are working before praising the plan. Not just a few days each month before the next tragedy happens.
You have to have constant situations where you have months of it going down.
The leaders claim to be data-driven, and the data shows 2022 is not any less violent than the last 8 years. And people in Baltimore are left to deal with that reality.
Man, I have not talked to anybody in this city that says they feel a little bit safer.
Despite politicians like Mayor Scott telling voters things would get better before capturing enough support from Baltimore voters to become mayor.
I'm going to take a different tack from beginning. We are at this point, this is not about black and white, rich and poor, blue collar, white collar. We're fighting for the heart and soul of our nation.
Divide and conquer. That's the easiest way to break a nation or a group of people. Just divide them and separate them, make them think that one is on the other side and this and that, and make them fight amongst each other. This is how they've done it for years, for centuries. The oligarchs or the Illuminati or whatever you want to call it, they divide and conquer. This is how they get it done. So why do you think that they're not doing that right now in so many different ways?
You know
know why BLM and their Democrat overlords never want to talk about Asian Americans despite us being the minority of the minorities? Because if they do, they have to address why we're doing so well. If they do that, they inevitably have to address why blacks are not. If they do that, they inevitably have to address what's wrong with their culture. If they do that, they have to address the fact that blacks have culturally always voted for and asked for help from Democrats for decades. If they do that, the world is going to see that out of all the racial minorities, the one group that Democrats have left alone to fend for themselves is also the one group succeeding above everyone else, even whites.
Why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crop.
I am the direct descendant of the North American slave trade. On my mother's side, my ancestors were enslaved in Alabama. On my father's side, we were enslaved in Texas. I am not oppressed. I'm not oppressed, and I'm not a victim. I'm neither oppressed nor a victim. I travel all across this country of ours, and I check into hotels, and I fly commercially, and I walk into retail establishments. I don't know. Although they are victims, I've taught my children they are victims of three things: their own ignorance, their own laziness, and their own poor decision making. That is all. They are victims. I've taught my children they are victims of three things: their own ignorance, their own laziness, and their own poor decision making. Racism in America would by and large be dead today if it were not for certain people and institutions keeping it on life support. And sadly, very sadly, one of those institutions is the American education system. I can think of nothing more damaging to a society than to tell a baby born today that she has grievances against another baby born today simply because of what their ancestors may have done 2 centuries ago. There is simply no point in doing that to our children, and putting critical race theory into our classrooms in part does that. Putting critical race theory into our classrooms is not combating racism, it's fanning the flames of what little embers are left. Let racism die the death it deserves, and let's keep living the life of the country that we are. Thank you.
I'm going to take a different tack from beginning. We are at this point, this is not about black and white, rich and poor, blue collar, white collar. We're fighting for the heart and soul of our nation. I'm going to take a different tack from beginning. We are at this point, this is not about black and white, rich and poor, blue collar, white collar. We're fighting for the heart and soul of our nation.